Well, in other stories, an NGO, Youth Bridge Foundation, is calling on government to pay more attention to the needs of the youth in the country. Programs Manager Douglas Quarty said this can be possible if young people are included as key stakeholders in governance. Now, almost 1 out of every 4 people in Ghana was reported to be aged between 20 to 35 years. However, persons 15 to 35 years who form the youth, according to the National Youth Policy, constitute about a third of the population of Ghana. The youth, which mostly forms part of the active population in the country, play diverse roles when it comes to the development of the country. Well, in Ghana, democratic elections are held every 4 years. As we prepare for election 2016, we find out how the enthusiasm and potential of the youth can be employed in ensuring a peaceful general elections in 2016. I'm joined in the studio by Mr. Seth Otin. He's the Executive Director of Youth Bridge Foundation. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. First of all, how important is the contribution of the youth in ensuring a peaceful election?
Thank you very much for having me. Let me say that peace and participatory governance does not begin and end with election. It transcends beyond election as an event when it's looked at from that perspective. What that means is that there is the need to look beyond the election as an event and look at a social contract that those elected would then have with the citizenry. So the needs of the youth then becomes very critical and has a lot of repercussion as to how it's managed could determine how they react during election.
And whose responsibility is it to ensure that the youth of this country are not used as destructive tools?
I think it's a general responsibility. I wouldn't say the government alone, but the entire nation. Everyone has that responsibility. But of course, we have the governor and the governed. There are people who have been mandated, and the 1992 Constitution equally prescribes systems and programs. For instance, the policy framework for decentralization, the new one, equally prescribes structures and machinery at a local level to address stakeholder interests. So right from the community level to the national level, it's a joint responsibility. Not only that, parents, corporate institutions equally have that responsibility. Come to think of it, something goes wrong. We will be quick to blame the government. However, companies would equally suffer. So I would see it as a collective responsibility to ensure the needs of the youth are addressed and for a peaceful environment for that we will live in.
Over the years, we've seen the youth being manipulated by politicians. They have been at the forefront of violence in most political parties. I mean, you see the picketing in the NPP headquarters, and a chunk of these people are the youth who are engaged in these activities. What has brought us to this extent?
I think it's an issue of lack of understanding of the political processes, some frustrations as well in terms of the needs of the youth not being met, and level of ignorance. That way, the youth become vulnerable. If you need food to eat and someone is able to put food on your table, then they will dictate the rate at which you should move or how you should behave. So I think if we take the needs of the youth seriously, address those needs, and secondly, help them to understand and appreciate the political processes, the issues around governance and the participatory governance principles, as enshrined the Constitution and the National Decentralization Policy Framework, then they would be able to understand the issues, to know how they can meaningfully participate without waiting for someone to come and tell them this is the meaning of that action. And they, based on that misinformation, possibly would react.
Would you say, therefore, that civil society has generally failed in inputting the contributions of the youth and engaging them a lot more in participatory governance?
I wouldn't say civil society has failed. Civil society is playing a role, citizenry have a role to play, government has a role. Go to the district assemblies and the local levels, you realize that the frontiers, there are weak frontiers for youth engagement, even at the local levels. So it's a collective responsibility. Let me say that it's a journey that we're on. Democracy, of course, is expensive. It's a long journey. We begin it, but we all have to take up that responsibility. We are beginning a program with the help of the Canadian Fund for Local Initiatives in the Northern region. Already next month or sometime this month, beginning the discussions for first-time voters on the electoral processes. I think this is how we should begin. So civil society will have a role to play, as well as political leaders.
How soon are we going to see this change?
Change, my brother, look at the high level of literacy and illiteracy in our country. The high level of dropout rates. The journey, it's far, far fetched. You know, when you have majority of the people who are illiterate, who do not understand and are not part of the processes, fail to understand, and we, the media as well, not bringing down the programs and the policies.
It's obviously going to take some time.
It's going to take some time. But the journey of 1,000 miles
must begin with a step.
With a first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Selotin. He is Executive Director of Youth Bridge Foundation. But staying while longer on the Youth Bridge Foundation, they're calling on government to pay a lot more attention to the needs of the youth in the country.
The decentralization system ensures citizens play a critical role in the implementation of government decisions, as the democratic process is not complete without their participation. An NGO, Youth Bridge Foundation, has argued the involvement of the youth in local governance is crucial to the nation's development.
Youth are not much interested in decision-making or governance at the local level. Structures that exist for youth engagement are very weak, and some of them are not very friendly. We also recognize the fact that even as a structure, the national youth or district youth offices are not well resourced. What it means is that it's unable to mobilize and attract young people to the offices in terms of help them to engage and have discussion.
Other participants raised similar concerns.
A system of decentralization really practiced gives room, a broader base for young people to engage in national development.
Programs Director of the National Youth Authority, Stephen Chiba, said encouraging the youth to play their role in local governance will ensure innovations needed to solve national issues. Youth Bridge is a youth-focused organization set up to create supportive platforms to challenge the creativity of the youth. It is also to make available critical information and resources needed for total development of the youth.